Today we're going to talk about dividing to terminating and non-terminating decimals. So first off, we need to figure out what that means. If I think of the word terminate, I think of to end. Okay, so a terminating decimal is a decimal that ends. So on the opposite end, a non-terminating decimal is a decimal that does not end. So terminating decimal, it comes to an end. So it's not going to go on and on forever, right? Non-terminating, it keeps going on without, you'd be dividing to 15 numbers, and that would just be really obnoxious. We don't need all those decimals. So what we actually need you to do is we need you to round, okay? So when a decimal does not end, you need to round. And when rounding, we want you to round to the nearest hundredth. Remember, if you have a decimal, so let's say that's the decimal is 7.523. So when we're rounding to the nearest hundredths, the hundredths place is the second number. We need to go to 3 decimals so that we can look at that number to decide if the 2 needs to round up or stay the same. Okay, so for this one, the 3 would say that the 2 stays the same. And you can put a 0 there, you don't need to. Really, our rounded answer would be 7 and 52 hundredths, okay? So when rounding, you divide to 3 decimal points so we can eventually round it to 2. Again, this is just a review of our steps. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Does McDonald's sell burgers? So let's look at the first example. We've got 1,854 divided by 16. So first thing I'm going to do, because again, I don't have my multiples of 16 memorized like some of my others, is I'm going to write my multiples on the side, my first 9 multiples. So we've got 16, 32, 48, 64, 80, 96, 112, 128, 144. I'm going to double check. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, now we can divide. So it doesn't go into 1, so we look at 18. How many times does it go into 18? Goes in 1 time. So now we multiply. 16 times 1 is 16. Subtract 18 minus 16. 8 minus 6 is 2. 1 minus 1 is 0. Last step, bring down. Now we look at 25. How many times does 16 go into 25? 16 is smaller, 32 is bigger, so it goes in 1 time. We multiply. 16 times 1 is 16. Next step is to subtract. 25 minus 16 is 9. Last step, step 4, bring down. Okay, now we look at our division. 94 divided by 16. How many times does 16 go into 94? It goes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 96 is too big, so it goes in 5 times. We multiply. 16 times 5 was 80. Now we subtract. 94 minus 80 is 14. Last step is to bring down, but we don't have anything to bring down. So what we're going to do, instead of going to a remainder, is we're actually going to divide to a decimal. We're going to add a decimal point at the end of our dividend and at the end of our quotient. And then I'm going to add a 0 at the end of our dividend, because adding a 0 there doesn't change the value. So now I have a number to bring down. And now we look at, okay, how many times does 16 go into 140? It goes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is too big, so 8 times. 16 times 8 was 128. Subtract. 140 minus 128 is 12. Again, we have a remainder. We don't have anything to bring down, so we add another 0. Bring down the 0. How many times does 16 go into 120? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Too big. So 128 is too big. 112 was 7 times. 16 times 7 is 112. Subtract 120 minus 112 is 8. Now, again, we've got a remainder. We have nothing to bring down. We've gone to 2 decimal places. We've gone to the hundredths, but we actually have to go to the thousandths in order to round to the hundredths. So I add a 0, bring it down. How many times does 16 go into 80? Goes in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It actually works out that it goes in 5 times exactly. 16 times 5 is 80. Subtract 80 minus 80 is 0. So now we have a remainder of 0. We went to 3 decimal points. It says to round to the nearest hundredth, so you can either leave it as this, or you could say it's about 115, and the 5 says the 7 rounds up to 88. All right, example 2. We've got 5,678 divided by 14. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write down my multiples of 14 on the side. So we've got 14, 28, 42, 56, 70, 84, 98, 112, 126. Let's double check. That should be 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now we can start dividing. Does 14 go into 5? Nope. So we got to go to the 2 numbers. Does 14 go into 56? Let's check. Goes in 1, 2, 3, 4 times exactly. So 14 times 4 is 56. Now we can subtract. 56 minus 56 is 0. Bring down the 7. How many times does 14 go into 7? Well, 7's smaller than 14, so it doesn't go into it. So we can't just ignore it. We have to say that it goes in 0 times. 14 times 0 is 0. Now we can subtract. 7 minus 0 is 7. Bring down the 8. 14 goes into 78. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 84 is too big, so 5 times. So 14 times 5 was 70. And we can subtract. 78 minus 70 is 8. We have a remainder. We have nothing to bring down. So again, we need to put a decimal in our dividend and a decimal in our quotient, and I'm going to add a 0 in the dividend so I have a number to bring down. All right, how many times does 14 go into 80? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's too big, so 5 times. 14 times 5 is 70. Subtract. 80 minus 70 is 10. So again, we have a remainder. We have nothing to bring down, so I need to add a 0. So I have something to bring down. 14 goes into 100 how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 112 is too big, so it goes in 7 times. 14 times 7 is 98. 100 minus 98 is 2. So we still have a remainder. We still don't have anything to bring down. I need to go to 3 decimal points, so I'm going to add a 0. Bring it down. How many times does 14 go into 20? Goes in 1 time because 28 is too big. 14 times 1 is 14. Subtract. 20 minus 14 is 6. So we still have a remainder. We still don't have anything to bring down. But remember, we said we just need to divide to 3 decimal values. And now we want to round. So we want to round to the hundredths place, which is the 7. So we're going to look at the 1. The 1 says that the 7 is going to remain the same, and then everything else to the left remains the same. So it's about 405 and 57 hundredths. Go ahead and try the you try on your own.